If you're enjoying this story and you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We'd love to welcome you into our growing community. 6 months ago, everything started with an exciting announcement. The hockey club I play for, Longford HC, received an invitation to participate in an international amateur tournament scheduled to take place in Bangkok the following spring. Like everyone else on the first team, I was eager to earn a place on the squad. However, the club committee quickly reminded us that a trip of that size would require significant funding. There would be flights, accommodation, meals, tournament fees, and plenty of other expenses to cover. For the record, my name is Charlie Hunt. I'm 20 years old and play left-wing forward for Longford HC. After calculating the projected costs for the 3-week trip, the committee presented us with a fundraising target. Fortunately, everyone in the club embraced the challenge. Local businesses offered sponsorships, and one generous retired entrepreneur contributed £10,000 toward the cause. His donation provided a fantastic foundation, and soon additional fundraising efforts began gaining momentum. Month after month, the total steadily increased. Confidence grew that we would eventually reach our target and secure our place in the tournament. As excitement built, club members became even more determined to raise the remaining funds. One of our most successful fundraising events turned out to be a themed costume dance held during the Christmas season. Instead of our traditional holiday celebration, we organized a large tarts and Vickers party beneath a huge marquee erected directly on the hockey field. The event attracted nearly 500 guests and quickly became the talk of the town. There are several different ways such parties can be organized. In some versions, the men dress as priests while the women wear glamorous or provocative outfits. We chose the opposite approach because everyone agreed it would be far more entertaining. The women arrived dressed as playful versions of clergy members, while the men transformed themselves into extravagant ladies of the night, complete with skirts, heels, makeup, wigs, and accessories. The costumes were incredible. One participant became the center of attention after appearing to misunderstand the dress code entirely. He arrived wearing what looked like a perfectly ordinary gray suit with a black shirt and clerical collar. Everyone assumed he had ignored the theme. Then he turned around. The entire back of his suit had been removed, revealing fishnet stockings, a suspender belt, lingerie, and several other unexpected surprises underneath. The crowd erupted with laughter and applause, and he easily won the award for the most creative costume of the evening. Compared with him, my outfit seemed relatively modest. I wore fishnet stockings, suspenders, a black leather mini-skirt, a sheer top, a fitted black blouse, silver jewelry, and an auburn wig. Looking in the mirror before the event, I thought I looked surprisingly convincing. Of course, many of the other guys had chosen similar outfits, making it difficult to stand out. Still, several women complimented my appearance throughout the evening, telling me I made a rather attractive girl. I won't pretend I didn't enjoy hearing that. More importantly, the event was a tremendous success financially. The money raised pushed us beyond our fundraising target and officially secured our participation in the Bangkok tournament. With the financial challenge solved, a new concern emerged: team selection. More club members wanted to travel than there were places available. After lengthy discussions, the committee organized a ballot to determine who would fill the remaining positions. Fortunately, as a regular first-team player, my place was guaranteed. Others weren't nearly as lucky. Once the squad had been finalized, we spent the next several months training intensely together. Coaches focused on fitness, tactics, and squad depth, ensuring every position had capable backup options. Eventually, tournament month arrived. 30 members of our club boarded a flight at Heathrow Airport, filled with excitement and anticipation. For most of us, it would be our first trip to Thailand, which only added to the adventure. After a long and exhausting flight, we finally landed in Bangkok. The journey from the airport to our hotel was an experience in itself. Endless streams of traffic stretched in every direction as our bus crawled through the outskirts of the city. By the time we finally arrived at our destination, everyone was relieved. We unpacked quickly and headed straight to bed. Because we had arrived in the early evening, we hoped a full night's sleep would help us adjust to the local time zone and overcome the effects of jet lag. The next several days were devoted almost entirely to preparation. We visited the stadium where the matches would be played, and I was amazed by its size and professionalism. Compared to the facilities back home, it felt enormous. Training sessions occupied most of our schedule, allowing us to familiarize ourselves with the conditions and finalize our preparations before competition began. At last, the tournament officially opened. Although it was an international competition, it remained an amateur event, so there was no extravagant opening ceremony. Instead, the president of the Thailand Hockey Association welcomed the participants with a brief speech before the opening match. Between Bangkok Warriors and Toronto Falcons from Canada, the home side emerged victorious. Our own tournament began the following morning against a French club. Thankfully, we started with a win. Like many competitions, the tournament began with group stage matches before progressing to knockout rounds. We performed consistently throughout the early stages and eventually finished second in our group. A couple of impressive victories in the knockout phase carried us all the way to the quarterfinals, where our run finally ended against a talented Chinese team. Naturally, we were disappointed to be eliminated, but overall we were proud of our performance and grateful for the opportunity to compete on such an international stage. Until that point, hockey had dominated our schedule, leaving little time to explore Bangkok itself. Now that our tournament was over, team management relaxed the rules and encouraged us to enjoy the remaining days before our flight home. Since we had already committed to staying long enough to watch the final, everyone welcomed the chance to experience the city properly. A guided bus tour introduced us to Bangkok's layout and major attractions. Our guide also explained how to use local taxis and strongly recommended that none of us wander around entirely on our own. Over the next couple of days, I visited temples, historical landmarks, and cultural sites. Everything felt completely different from life back in Longford. Then, on our second free day, my friend Simon proposed a different kind of sightseeing. He suggested that a group of us visit Bangkok's famous nightlife districts. I'm not saying we should do anything crazy, he insisted. But Thailand is famous for its ladyboy performers. Everyone talks about them. Since we're already here, we should at least see what all the fuss is about. A few drinks later, 6 of us agreed to go. The hotel concierge recommended a popular cabaret venue known for its performances and tourist-friendly atmosphere. According to him, the show featured glamorous costumes, talented performers, and plenty of entertainment. As it turned out, he wasn't exaggerating. The venue resembled a theater filled with dining tables. Elegant performers in stunning evening gowns served drinks while guests settled into their seats. The production itself was spectacular. Elaborate costumes, impressive stage designs, choreographed dance routines, and performances set to well-known pop songs kept the audience entertained throughout the evening. A drag comedian provided additional humor between the larger musical numbers. When the show ended, many of the performers gathered near the exit where visitors could take souvenir photographs with them for a small fee. The audience seemed more than happy to oblige. After the performance ended, we all contributed a little money toward the performers before heading outside. Simon, who somehow seemed to know far more about Bangkok nightlife than the rest of us, suggested we explore the streets surrounding the theater. According to him, this area was famous for being a gathering place for many of the city's transgender women. We hadn't walked far before a group of glamorous women called out to us. "Hello, boys. Looking for some fun?" Simon laughed and shouted back cautiously, uncertain how to respond. Before any of us could continue the conversation, another voice interrupted. "Forget them and come with me." I turned around and found myself staring at an incredibly attractive dark-haired woman wearing an elegant blue silk dress. At first, I barely registered her clothing because my attention was immediately drawn elsewhere. She was stunning. "The others will go with anyone," she explained confidently. "They're only interested in quick money. Most foreign men are curious about Thai ladyboys. If you're interested in learning about us, that's different." She smiled warmly. "My name is Susie. Buy me a drink, and I'll tell you everything you'd like to know." To be honest, none of us knew who was telling the truth. I wasn't looking for anything romantic or physical, but I was curious. Thailand's transgender community had fascinated me since arriving in Bangkok. I glanced toward Simon. He shrugged. "All right," he said. "We'll join you. But if anything feels strange, we're leaving. Susie agreed immediately. She led us into a nearby bar, where 3 of her friends soon joined us. They introduced themselves as Candy, Miley, and Sheila. "I'm called Sheila because I like Australian boys," one of them joked, causing everyone to laugh. We gathered around a table while a waiter delivered beers for us and a bottle of champagne for the women. At that moment, it became obvious that our evening was going to be more expensive than expected. Susie wasted no time getting the conversation started. "So," she asked with a playful smile, "did you boys come to Thailand specifically to sleep with a lady boy?" The 6 of us immediately protested. "No, definitely not. Absolutely not." Our overlapping responses made everyone laugh. Simon eventually raised a hand to restore order. "We're actually here for a hockey tournament," he explained. "But Bangkok is famous for its ladyboys. Since we were already here, we wanted to see for ourselves what everyone talks about." He paused before adding, "And I have to say, all 4 of you are beautiful. It's hard to believe you weren't born women." The compliment clearly pleased them. Trevor, one of our teammates, leaned forward curiously. "Was it difficult?" he asked. "Transforming yourselves so completely?" Susie laughed softly. "Of course it takes work," she replied. "Every woman, regardless of how she was born, spends time improving her appearance." She explained that many Thai transgender women benefited from naturally petite builds, but emphasized that dedication and effort were just as important. "There are also many foreigners who come here for gender-affirming surgery," she added. "Some become incredibly convincing women." As the evening progressed, everyone became more relaxed. Questions flowed freely. The women seemed genuinely happy to discuss their experiences, and we learned that transgender people were generally accepted within Thai society. Many held ordinary jobs and careers outside entertainment or nightlife. "When I've saved enough money for surgery," Susie told us proudly, "I want to return to school and train as a dental nurse." Simon appeared surprised. "So someone who wants to live as a woman can do that openly here?" "Usually, yes," Susie replied. "What about Western men?" he continued. "Surely it's more difficult for them." She shook her head. "Not necessarily. If they aren't too large and have the right support, many can transform surprisingly well." Then a mischievous smile appeared on her face. "In fact, we could prove it." The 6 of us exchanged nervous glances. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. "We give one of you a makeover." The table erupted with laughter. Nobody seemed particularly eager to volunteer. Susie raised a hand. "Let's make it interesting. If we successfully transform one of you into a convincing ladyboy, each of you pays us $100. "And if you fail?" Simon asked. "We buy all of you dinner." The challenge hung in the air for several seconds. Then Simon pointed directly at me. "If we're doing this, Charlie has to be the one." The other guys immediately looked relieved. "What?" I protested. "Why me?" "Because you're the smallest," Simon replied. "And remember the tarts and Vickers party? You looked far more convincing than the rest of us." Unfortunately, he wasn't wrong. Most of the others had thrown on random skirts and cheap wigs without much effort. I'd actually tried to create a believable appearance. "That's not the point," I argued. But nobody listened. Within moments, everyone except me had enthusiastically agreed to the wager. Naturally, they had. They weren't the ones being volunteered. Before I could continue protesting, Susie and her friends pulled me to my feet. "We start now," Susie announced cheerfully. She turned toward my teammates. "Come back in 2 hours. Meet Charlie's new girlfriend." The girls burst into laughter. Simon grinned. "Have fun, sweetheart." And just like that, my friends disappeared down the street, abandoning me completely. "Come on," Susie said. "We have a lot of work to do." She marched me several blocks before stopping outside a weathered old house. "Miley and I live here." Within minutes, I found myself upstairs in a bedroom overflowing with dresses, shoes, cosmetics, and countless items of women's clothing. Susie folded her arms. "Take your clothes off." I hesitated. The idea of undressing in front of 4 transgender women felt incredibly awkward. Seeing my discomfort, Sheila rolled her eyes. "Don't be shy. There's nothing there we haven't seen before. Realizing resistance was pointless, I slowly removed my shirt, trousers, socks, and shoes. When I reached my underwear, I paused. Miley solved the problem by simply pulling them down herself. My hands immediately flew into place to protect my modesty, provoking another round of laughter. Eventually, I gave up and stood there completely exposed. Susie studied me carefully. "Not bad," she said thoughtfully. "You're short, slim, and you don't have much body hair." She handed me a tube. "Use this." The cream turned out to be a hair removal product. After applying it across my body and waiting several uncomfortable minutes, I was sent into the shower. Soon the remaining hair washed away completely. When I emerged, the girls dried me with fluffy towels before covering my skin with scented moisturizer. The floral fragrance felt strangely pleasant. Next came a pair of padded white panties designed to enhance the hips and buttocks. After some rather embarrassing instructions regarding positioning everything correctly, the garment was pulled into place. A bra followed. Then Susie disappeared into a cupboard. When she returned, she was carrying a pair of silicone breast forms. "I haven't needed these in years," she said proudly. Once inserted into the bra, the effect was startling. Looking down, I suddenly possessed what appeared to be a genuine feminine figure. Standing before a full-length mirror, I stared at my reflection in disbelief. From the neck down, I genuinely looked like a woman. The realization left me speechless. Then Susie guided me toward a dressing table. "Now," she announced excitedly, "it's time for makeup." She examined my face critically. "Your eyebrows are much too thick." I groaned. Thankfully, she smiled. "Don't worry. We're only borrowing them today." She produced a small container of wax and carefully worked it into my brows, flattening every hair against the skin. After applying a layer of concealer and foundation, she stepped aside. I blinked at the mirror. My eyebrows had completely disappeared. And that was only the beginning. Susie began by applying a reddish color-correcting cream across my cheeks and jawline to conceal the faint shadow of facial hair. "First, we get rid of the beard shadow," she explained. At that stage, I looked more unusual than feminine, but that quickly changed when she blended a layer of liquid foundation over my entire face. After setting it with powder, my features seemed almost blank, like a fresh canvas waiting for an artist. "Now we can start creating your female face," Susie announced. She carefully redrew my eyebrows with a pencil, positioning them slightly above my natural brow line and giving them a gentle arch. The simple adjustment instantly made my eyes appear larger and more feminine. Next came eye makeup. A combination of soft blue-gray eyeshadow and subtle white highlights transformed my eyelids. False eyelashes were glued into place, followed by mascara and eyeliner. To my surprise, the result was striking. My eyes suddenly looked dramatic, elegant, and almost exotic. Blusher added warmth to my cheeks, while a rich pink lipstick completed the look. Then Miley appeared carrying an auburn wig with beautiful shoulder-length curls. Once it was settled into place, I could hardly recognize myself. Much to my surprise, I found myself genuinely enjoying the experience. At first, I had resisted the makeover completely, but now the attention, care, and pampering felt strangely enjoyable. While Susie worked on my face, Candy painted my fingernails a glossy pink that perfectly matched my lipstick. "Time to finish dressing you," Susie declared. Sheila held out a pair of nude-colored tights. "We don't usually wear these during the day in Thailand," Susie explained. "It's much too hot, but your legs will look smoother and more feminine with them." Sheila helped guide the tights up my legs. Thankfully, the supportive underwear I'd been given earlier spared me from further embarrassment. Next came a flowing brown voile dress. Holding my hand, Susie helped me step carefully into it while Miley pulled it into place and zipped it up the back. The fabric felt light and elegant. Finally, Susie slipped a pair of black pumps onto my feet. The heels were only about 3 inches high, and thanks to my previous experience at the fundraising costume party, I managed to stand and walk comfortably. "Gold jewelry," Susie decided after a moment of thought. She fastened a delicate choker around my neck and clipped elegant hoop earrings onto my ears. Stepping back, She studied her work critically. Almost perfect. After another search through the wardrobe, she produced a black lace shrug that tied neatly beneath my chest and softened the appearance of my shoulders. "There," she announced proudly. The other girls immediately began clapping and cheering. "Gorgeous. We're definitely winning this bet. What do you think, Cheryl?" I blinked in confusion. "Who is Cheryl?" The room erupted with laughter. "That's you, silly," Susie replied. "We can't keep calling you Charlie looking like that." Slowly, I turned toward the full-length mirror. The sight that greeted me left me speechless. A beautiful young woman stood staring back. I raised a trembling hand toward my face. The reflection copied the movement. It really was me. My jaw dropped. "What have you done to me?" I whispered. "We've turned you into a proper Thai lady," Susie laughed. She tilted her head. "So? Do you like the new you?" I hesitated before answering honestly. "Yes." The word escaped almost reluctantly. "Actually, I do." The girls squealed with delight before surrounding me with hugs. "Careful," Susie warned. "Don't ruin Cheryl's makeup." As everyone laughed, Miley sprayed a light mist of perfume around me. I looked down at my outfit. The dress was printed with delicate white patterns swirling across soft brown fabric. The handkerchief-style skirt fell just above my knees in graceful points and moved beautifully whenever I walked. My auburn curls brushed gently against my cheeks and shoulders. For the first time since this strange adventure began, I stopped fighting it. I loved how I looked. Turning toward the girls, I felt unexpected emotion welling up inside me. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I never imagined I could look like this." Tears began forming in my eyes. "Don't cry," Susie exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me. "Your mascara will run." That warning sent all of us into another fit of laughter. A glance at the clock revealed how quickly time had passed. "Well," Susie announced, "our 2 hours are up. Time to present Cheryl to the judges." "You can have my $100 right now," I admitted. "As far as I'm concerned, you've already proved your point." Susie shook her head immediately. "No, you're one of us now. If we win, you share in the winnings." Feeling both nervous and strangely excited, I allowed the 4 girls to escort me back onto the street. To my surprise, several other transgender women smiled appreciatively as we walked past. Their reactions boosted my confidence. By the time we reached the bar, I was actually enjoying myself. I found a gentle sway entering my walk. "That's it," Miley giggled. "Show off those hips, girlfriend." The bar came into view only minutes later. Inside, my teammates were waiting. Suddenly, my confidence faded. How would they react? Would they laugh? Would they admit the girls had succeeded? Most importantly, would they think I looked convincing? After everything that had happened, I found myself desperately wanting Susie and her friends to win. "Wait here," Susie instructed as we reached the entrance. "I'm going inside first." A few moments later, her voice echoed from within. "Okay, Cheryl. Come meet your admirers." Taking a deep breath, I stepped through the doorway and did my best to walk as gracefully and confidently as possible. The reaction was immediate. A sharp intake of breath came from one of the tables. Bloody hell. Trevor stared at me in complete disbelief. "Charlie, what have they done to you?" I smiled sweetly and approached the group. "Hello, boys," I purred playfully. "Isn't anyone going to buy a girl a drink?" The table fell silent. Then Simon slowly reached for his wallet. "All right, Susie," he admitted. "You win." He handed over a $100 bill. If I'd passed Charlie on the street, I wouldn't have recognized him. "Not Charlie," Susie corrected firmly. "Her name is Cheryl." The rest of the lads laughed and reluctantly handed over their own contributions, accepting that the challenge had been won beyond any doubt. The boys reluctantly handed over the rest of the wager money, muttering their admiration for the incredible transformation Susie and her friends had managed to achieve. "Now let's celebrate," Susie declared cheerfully. "Drinks are on us. Well, technically with your money." Everyone laughed. We gathered around a large table, alternating boys and girls around the seating arrangement. Apparently, I was now officially considered one of the girls, a fact nobody seemed inclined to question. When the drinks arrived, the men were served beer while the women received glasses of chilled white wine. Nobody even asked what I wanted. A glass of sparkling wine was simply placed in front of me alongside the others. Oddly enough, I didn't mind. After several toasts celebrating Susie, Miley, Sheila, and Candy's success, the atmosphere became increasingly relaxed and cheerful. "So," Trevor asked with obvious curiosity, "what's it actually like being transformed into a woman?" "Sorry, Cheryl." I glanced down at my wine before answering honestly. It felt strange at first. Really strange. But now. I paused. Now it feels surprisingly natural. The admission earned smiles from the girls. "I think you look beautiful," Simon said. At the same moment, I felt his hand squeeze my knee beneath the table. I immediately removed it and shot him a warning look. He only grinned. "It's true," he continued. "You make a much prettier woman than you do a skinny hockey player." "I'm not skinny," I protested automatically. "Then how am I supposed to play hockey?" Simon shrugged. "Plenty of women play hockey." The table erupted with laughter. Only then did I realize the trap I'd walked into. I had challenged the word skinny, not the part where he'd called me a pretty woman. Seeing my expression, everyone laughed even harder. "Fine," I admitted with a smile. "I actually like how I look." The confession felt surprisingly liberating. What Susie and the others have done, it feels different from simple dress-up. Trevor leaned forward. "Different how?" I thought for a moment. Back at the costume party, I was just wearing women's clothes. I looked down at my dress. This time feels more natural. Like these clothes somehow fit. The girls immediately squealed with excitement. "I knew it," Susie cried. "I knew you had a lady hidden inside you the moment we met." Groans and laughter echoed around the table. I already knew I would never hear the end of this. Trying to salvage what little dignity remained, I turned toward my teammates. "Can I at least trust you lot to keep this private?" The answer arrived immediately. "I'm not sure about that, Cheryl," Simon replied. My stomach dropped. He was already holding his phone. "Please tell me you didn't post those photos." Simon looked entirely too pleased with himself. Too late. The horror on my face only encouraged everyone else. For a moment I considered being angry. Then I surprised myself. Deep down, I wasn't entirely sure I cared. The makeover had begun as a joke, but somewhere along the way it had become something else. Something meaningful. Part of me suspected that one day I would wear a dress again. If people had already seen the photographs, perhaps that future would be easier to explain. Eventually Simon checked his watch. "Should we head back to the hotel?" I nodded. "Fine. But first I need to change back." Simon shook his head. "Actually, no." "What do you mean, no?" "I've already sent your photos to several people from the tour group." My eyes widened. "You did what?" "They're waiting to see Cheryl in person." The table exploded with laughter. I buried my face in my hands. "Thank you very much, Simon." The damage was done. There was no one doing it now. "Fine," I sighed dramatically. "But I'm definitely getting revenge." That earned another round of laughter. "We're coming too," Susie announced. "We want to see everyone's reaction." A short while later we left the bar together. The 4 girls surrounded me while the boys followed behind, making endless jokes about my walk and posture. As we approached the hotel, I immediately noticed something suspicious. Most of our tour group was gathered outside. Simon had clearly warned them. The moment they spotted me, whistles and cheers erupted. At first, everyone assumed I was simply another performer from the city. Then they realized who I was. The teasing quickly transformed into stunned disbelief. "Charlie." Several teammates stared openly. "You've got to be kidding." Even our coach appeared speechless. "It seems," he said awkwardly, "you've had quite an eventful afternoon." Deciding to embrace the role completely, I smiled sweetly. "It was wonderful," I replied dramatically. "You have no idea how lovely it feels being pampered by 4 beautiful women." The girls beamed at the compliment. The coach looked completely lost. Unable to think of a response, he retreated hastily. Within minutes we were all gathered in the hotel bar. To my amusement, people quickly stopped treating me as Charlie and instead accepted me as part of the girls' group. The evening passed pleasantly with laughter, stories, and far too many drinks. Eventually, the crowd began to thin out. "We should go," Susie said softly. "Our work night is just beginning." I felt unexpectedly sad. "Maybe we'll meet again." She smiled. "I hope so." I shook my head. "Tomorrow we watch the tournament final, then we fly home." "Then you'll have to send us photographs," Susie replied. Photos of Cheryl in England. The way she said it made it clear she already knew this wasn't the end of the story. We exchanged contact information and promised to stay in touch. Then a thought occurred to me. What about the clothes? I gestured toward the dress and shoes. "You'll want these back." Susie shook her head.
No.
"What? They're yours." The girls smiled. "Consider them the first pieces of Cheryl's wardrobe." For a moment, I couldn't find words. Then I hugged them, one by one. With a final wave, they disappeared into the Bangkok night. Eventually, I escaped the remaining crowd by claiming I needed the restroom. Instead, I slipped upstairs to my room. There I carefully removed the dress, wig, jewelry, and makeup. Every item was folded neatly and placed at the bottom of my suitcase. Looking at the collection, I couldn't help smiling. A few hours later, I joined the team for one final dinner. Thankfully, conversation focused on the tour rather than my transformation. Although I did occasionally catch Simon looking at me in a way that made me slightly uncomfortable. The following day, we attended the tournament final. The championship was won by a talented team from India, who fully deserved both the victory and the trophy. Soon afterward, we returned to the hotel, collected our luggage, and headed for the airport. As the aircraft climbed into the night sky, I settled into my seat and reflected on everything that had happened. The tournament had been unforgettable, but it wasn't hockey that occupied my thoughts. Instead, I found myself thinking about an old house in Bangkok for kind strangers and a mirror that had shown me a side of myself I never knew existed. Whatever the future held, one thing felt certain. Cheryl wasn't disappearing. A warm smile spread across my face as I imagined the dress waiting safely inside my suitcase. The first outfit in a collection that, somehow, I suspected would continue growing. With that comforting thought, I closed my eyes and drifted peacefully to sleep.